Welcome to the Coping Podcast, where we share strategies for coping with the stressors of life, especially the difficulties of parenting. And here is your host, Dr. Lee Weiss.
This is a special episode. This is a clip from a webinar we presented called Unlocking the Camp Experience: Essential Ways Parents Can Maximize Their Child's Growth.
Just a quick disclaimer, the information provided is for educational and informational purposes only. This is not intended to provide mental health treatment and does not constitute a client-therapist relationship. The information provided is not a replacement for being assessed and evaluated by a licensed professional and is not intended to replace mental health or medical advice.
Okay. Michelle, do you want to get started?
For sure. Okay, so we are going to be unlocking the camp experience, essential ways parents can maximize their child's growth.
Before we get started, though, I was just going to say one more time, if you guys have questions as we go into the presentation, please type them into the chat. We're going to have time at the end for some Q&A, and we'll kind of pick some questions that we want to answer. So just instead of losing track of them, just type them in the chat as we go. Go ahead, Michelle.
Perfect. Okay. You've signed up for camp, you sent the check, and your duffels may already be packed, or you're at least getting there. As child therapists, we really believe when you send your kids to camp, you're giving your kids a gift that will naturally provide endless enjoyment, but also so much more. From our perspective, the fun comes second to the lifelong and valuable lessons that children learn from a camp experience. It truly is the gift that keeps on giving. With this being said, many of the benefits do not just come from making the decision to send your kids to camp. How you approach this experience is going to dictate the gains for your child and your family. And that's why we're here with you tonight, to help increase your awareness of the life skills and lessons camp provides, to help you instill more of these at home in order to raise a healthy, happy adult, and to make sure you're actually going to get the benefits out of this that you should. This is more important now than ever as we see our younger generation struggling more and more with mental health issues. Sometimes the greatest lessons camp provides stem from uncomfortable moments, and by recognizing these opportunity in these moments, we can allow for the most growth. So a little bit about us before we get started. Lee and I have been in private practice together for the past 11 years. And from our very start together, we have always talked about how camp has contributed to the people and professionals that we are today. We often find ourselves encouraging clients that are able to recognize the immense value in the camp experience. So just a little bit about Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee is a licensed clinical psychologist in private practice for the past 12 years after having been on staff and affiliated with the Family Institute at Northwestern University. She earned a graduate degree in clinical psychology from the Illinois School of Professional Psychology with a specialty in children, and her bachelor's degree in psychology and Spanish from the University of Michigan. She grew up going to overnight camp for 7 summers, and both of her daughters are in their 3rd year at a 7-week overnight camp.
So for today, in terms of our agenda, we will cover what we feel are 5 top benefits for child development that kids get when they experience overnight camp. Of course, there are more than 5, but we're going to focus on 5 tonight. Then we will talk about 4 key ways that parents can help support the magic of camp before camp even begins, during camp from afar, and lastly, long after camp is over. And then finally, we will, as we said, open this up for some Q&A. So again, just to reiterate for those of you coming in, please, if you do think of questions throughout our presentation, please type them into the chat. And then at the end, we'll be able to address them. Okay, so the very first benefit for child development, the first thing that we think kids gain when they go to overnight camp is resilience and confidence.
A longitudinal study over a 5-year period highlighted the lasting impacts of camp and illuminated how camp experiences support young people in developing valuable skills, learning who they are, and preparing for life beyond camp. Camp provides opportunities for challenges, and you just can't skip the challenge part and get resilient. Ultimately, kids need to have challenging experiences, obstacles, if you will, to pave the path the way for growth. Fearful parenting, and for good reason, and the understandable tendency to think worst case scenario is reality has been damaging to our youth. Camp provides a place where kids can experience challenges, setbacks, and joys without their parents overseeing these experiences. Without parents there as a crutch, kids naturally figure out how to do so much more on their own. They can then bring these newly found skills home, proudly displaying what they've learned on their own.
So just because we're not with them, children are going to be experiencing all kinds of things and they may feel uncomfortable. And ultimately, that discomfort is what provides opportunities for growth. Many of your kids are taught from a very young age this concept of growth mindset that Carol Dweck coined, and they're taught it in school. I think preschool, kindergarten for sure. And it's important for us parents also to understand that from discomfort comes growth. So it's so important that we put the equation up on the screen for you to all see. In therapy, we teach kids that while feeling uncomfortable isn't pleasant, it also isn't dangerous. And it's important that we understand that distinction of discomfort does not equal danger. We are all wired to survive. And so we have those fight, flight, or freeze instincts for true danger situations. But most of the situations that our kids and us are in when we have these rushes of anxiety in our bodies are not actually true danger situations. So it's important that we help as parents, our kids ask themselves, am I in danger or am I just out of my comfort zone? And if it's the latter, we want to reframe being out of their comfort zone as an opportunity for growth.
So this leads to two important buzzwords that Lee and I often lecture about. We feel that grit, or stick-to-itiveness, if you will, is vital to raising healthy adults, and we feel our youth isn't getting enough opportunity to practice it. Grit is defined by Angela Duckworth, the author of Grit, as perseverance and passion for long-term goals. By Webster, it's defined as the quality that allows someone to continue to try to do something even though it's difficult, continued effort to do or achieve something despite difficulties. In simpler terms, you can think good work ethic. In order to gain coping tools, kids need to be provided opportunities to face challenges and to stick them out. At camp, in the best way possible, opportunities for this are endless. The goal is for kids to ultimately recognize the value of the pursuit, so such experiences are eventually sought out instead of feared.
So just like we need kids to be exposed to germs and dirt in order to develop a healthy immune system, we also really do need kids to develop a healthy psychological immune system. And from these hurdles or challenges or bumps in the road that they experience, honestly, that is how they develop coping skills or grit. And so the goal is actually not to raise kids in a bubble free of negative experiences, even though that certainly would appeal to most of us parents in the short term. It sounds lovely. But the goal is not to raise them in a bubble because, and we put this on the slide too for you to see, one cannot skip the challenges part and still get resilient. It's true. Overprotected kids who never experience stressors end up going through life really anxiously. We'll refer to a book that I'm sure many of you have read recently because it's the talk of the town. It's called The Anxious Generation, and it's written by John Haidt. And it's a tremendous book. It's really, really important. But the kids who never experience these stressors end up going through life in what he calls the defend mode or the anxious mode. In other words, they're scanning the world for potential dangers rather than tackling life in a default discover mode or curious mode and feeling confident about their own ability to cope and tackle life's challenges head on. So at camp, we've given a couple of examples in this slide. Learning to water ski is something that a lot of kids come back from camp learning to do, but it requires stick-to-itiveness because most people don't get up on their first try, right? And so if you want to learn how to water ski at camp, you really just can't plan on trying once and throwing in the towel. You start maybe learning on the boom. Then you might graduate to the short rope and eventually try to get up on the long rope and try to see how far you can go across the lake. And along the way in this process, the kids fall, they get water up their nose, they belly flop. And as unpleasant as all of that might be, they try again and again and again. And with the support and the encouragement of their, counselors and maybe the healthy peer pressure of their friends, they practice over and over. And when they actually have this experience of like going all the way around the lake, they feel such a sense of accomplishment. So the next time that another challenge is presented to them, instead of being fearful, they're really excited and ready to tackle that challenge because they felt in their bodies what it feels like to succeed. Another example of how camp fosters resilience is, losing. We put that on the slide. At camp, there are so many opportunities to win and also to lose. Most camps have color wars or sporting events, swim meets, tennis matches, and you have to practice graciously losing, coping with that feeling, and handling it over and over and over. Michelle actually sent a postcard to her daughter it's on the screen. It says "Too legit to quit" when she was trying to learn water ski because she recognized that her daughter was getting frustrated because it didn't happen on the first try. And of course, she wanted her to continue and keep at it.
So the second benefit that we're going to talk about is reconnecting with nature and the outdoors. As we work as a society to restore and strengthen our youth's collective mental health, nature is at the forefront of this effort. Reconnecting with nature and the outdoors grounds kids and helps them slow down. So nature has proven time and time again to make us feel connected in a way that nothing else can.
Unfortunately, the world that we're raising our kids in is filled with technology from a much younger age than is healthy. Kids, again, were meant to have this play-based childhood to figure out their footing as they climb on the playground or ride a bicycle, to explore the real world around them. And of course, we hope your kids are doing those things, but we know that kids are spending hours and hours of the day also on screens, which truly does take time away from time they could be spending in nature and doing other things. So again, at camp, they are immersed in nature. And without making it a mindfulness intervention, they feel in their bodies what it feels like to be grounded, to be surrounded by beauty, to enjoy the present moment, to be really active in using their bodies. And when they're in that mode, they're likely not worrying about the future, anxiety, or dwelling on the past.
So spending time outdoors helps clear the mind, which ultimately makes room for new ideas and creativity. The senses helps to ground our bodies in our here and now in a calming way. In our therapy practice, when kids are anxious, we often use this skill with them. We ask them to look around the room and tell us what they're hearing, what they smell, and what they feel, and so forth. It helps to center us. The confidence piece also comes to play with physical challenges as well. This is something that so many kids lack due to the increase in indoor structured activities with an adult constantly present. We can go back to our child's early years and think about the benefits of a playground and achieving and working towards a new skill. Even something seemingly simple like independently climbing up the ladder to reach the slide. Being outside, whether it's cartwheels in the grass, kicking a soccer ball around, or canoeing on the lake, kids get practice with these new skills, stepping outside their comfort zone with newfound confidence.
So we're going to talk about the third benefit for child development of going to overnight camp, which is going back to a simpler way of life where kids get to be kids. So at camp, there is running around, but there's no running around feeling stressed about getting to the extracurricular activities on time and, having a quick dinner and running here and feeling the pressure of stressed out parents. Kids are on site the whole time and they get to play and just be kids. And that is a beautiful thing. And this is, again, what the author of The Anxious Generation talks about, right? And this is what he wants for kids, a play-based childhood with more time spent with peers, independent of parents, more face-to-face interactions, which is so crucial to their development. In our parents' or grandparents' generation, when they would come home after school, kids, and they'd ride bikes in the neighborhood and they'd play in the mud with their friends, only to come home for dinner time. These days seem like a thing of the past. And so again, at camp, we really want to go back to the basics.
So this childhood play and independence allows children to develop and hone social skills, learn tools to overcome anxiety, and become self-governing young adults. It's truly incredible to think about the benefits that arise from simply allowing kids to be kids. This also includes kids needing more practice just being, to better be able to tolerate their own thought process and feelings and calm their bodies and regulation systems. This is something so many kids struggle with nowadays. This unstructured downtime also allows for the necessary properties to form healthy and meaningful connections with others, something that is severely hindered due to smartphones and social media.
Thank you for listening to the Coping Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes. And check out our podcast page at copingpartners.com.